Hello, Facebook Live friends and family. I am just going to open my LaCroix here before we get started. I actually don't even know if it's 8 o'clock yet. I wasn't paying attention, so hopefully it's 8 o'clock. This is Suzette Martinez Valladares. I am Republican running for U.S. Congress in California's 25th Congressional District. This district is Donald. Welcome. It's so lovely to see you here again. You are a faithful patriot, and I appreciate you joining us every week more than you know. Thank you so much. Today is my 13th Facebook Live Town Hall. I started these Town Halls 13 weeks ago to provide really our community, our neighbors, the constituents of the 25th Congressional District, the opportunity to get to know me, to ask questions. I believe in transparency and being an accessible member representing you, which is why I do these Facebook Lives, the 13th. I'm gonna confess to you guys a little secret of mine, a little dirty secret. So my husband and I, especially since we had Charlotte, every week try to really make it a habit of sitting down and watching some type of TV show together or something from about 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock every night. We really just try and do some wind down time together and do that as a couple. And in the summers, none of our shows are on. So I have a secret confession. I am secretly obsessed, because there's no other shows on in the middle of summer, with Bachelor in Paradise. So I didn't get to watch it last night, because last night I went to newly elected Councilman John Lee's election night victory party. So today I'm super anxious to see who gets the rose in Bachelor in Paradise. And yes, shh, don't tell my husband. He watches it with me in the summer. Again, it's because there's nothing else on in the summer, right? So I do want to congratulate John Lee and his successful win last night. You know, this was a hotly contested city council race. We know that LA City this was Council District 12. The portion of Porter Ranch in the council district actually resides in the 25th Congressional District. And really, I'm so excited for the new councilman, but I'm more excited because a lot of us conservatives and Republicans born and raised in Los Angeles County, and I'm from the city of Los Angeles, really feel like we're in a fight for our soul as Californians. And we, are a little... as Republicans and conservatives, we've been beaten down, and to see a common sense, pragmatic Republican win an LA City Council seat was a big deal and very exciting for Republicans and really the conservative movement. So congratulations, John Lee. Max, thank you. Hello to you as well. Thank you for joining. Virat, thank you for joining as well. And Nathan, welcome, Nathan. So, just to kind of get back to some of the basics, I do these every week, and sometimes I feel like we're talking about hot button issues or topics, and then sometimes I feel like I'm just sounding like, an autoplay here and talking about the same things. But I really think it's super important that everybody who is interested in my candidacy, is interested in supporting me, understands why I'm running for Congress. And I'm really running for two reasons. The first reason is for my daughter. So for those of you who have children or even grandchildren, nieces and nephews, the future really means more to you than you could have ever imagined when you have children. And wanting to know that my daughter grows up in a safe America with a strong national defense, with strong leadership and a limited government, to make sure that she has access to a quality education, to make sure that our Constitution is upheld, is really one of my main priorities And my daughter inspires me every day to stand up for our constitutional rights and for our shared conservative values here in our district. And really, I do this because I know there are so many conservatives and Republicans and even people who don't affiliate with a party that want these very same things for their children, and they can relate to this. And I want to be the voice for all of you and for all of your children to ensure that they are really given a better future than even what we have today. It's a core reason. The second reason that I've been inspired to run for Congress is because of my mother, who last year passed away from stage 4 pancreatic cancer. That end of life journey was sudden. It was quick, unanticipated. I was her full-time caregiver, responsible for her advance directive, her power of attorney, was literally fighting with insurance agencies and over her hospice care the very last days of her life. And during that, actually not even during that time, I prayed a whole lot. And I prayed for the fortitude and the wisdom and the guidance of God to get me through that really tough and trying time with my mom. And I just can't imagine what a single payer universal healthcare system would look like for families who need medical care immediately, for families who need access, for families who can't afford the outrageous and growing cost of medical care. And my mom being my biggest advocate, my best friend, really being the person that instilled in me throughout my life that you give back to your community and you speak up for others that cannot speak up for themselves. She is one of the true reasons that I am also running for Congress. And that experience really led me to understand, even more so as executive director at Autism Speaks. I fought for individuals on the autism spectrum and the special needs community and the early learning community. And that whole time I understood how important having access to healthcare, having access to services and therapies, all of those things are important. But actually that moment with my mom and my mom's passing really inspired me to take the next step, to speak up for my community, for my country, for my family. And healthcare is a core reason and platform of my campaign, as well as immigration reform, true border security, a quality educational system and opportunity for our children, led at the local level, not at the national level. These are all issues that are very important to me. I'll probably get into a little depth with them a little later on tonight. But welcome, Fernando. Thank you so much. Fernando is my father, guys, actually. Welcome, Dad. Welcome, Dan. Welcome, Deborah. I think, or Debbie, actually. It's not Deborah. It says Deborah, but I call you Debbie. Welcome to my town hall. I was criticized a couple weeks ago. I mean, right? I have thick skin. I don't really care. But every once in a while, I do feel the need to defend myself, or not even defend myself or explain, but just the need to throw it back at people that. So I was criticized a couple weeks ago because I do shout outs to people, and specifically my family. So I'm not really sure why people don't want me to say hello to my family on my town halls. And for those of you that are Latino, if you don't recognize, you know this, that if you don't recognize a family member, if you don't greet them with a hello, if you don't say goodbye, you are in big trouble. So thanks for bashing me on a cultural norm, guys. Not really, but I mean, I could care less. I'm going to do shout outs and say thank you and welcome my family and all of my friends and constituents and people and neighbors here on the town hall who are taking their time out of their busy evenings, I'm sure routines, to just learn more about me and learn more about how we can truly be represented in Washington. So Dan, Democrats are pushing population control with all of these things we don't want to comprehend, trying to teach our kids in the 2nd grade to learn about sex. You know, this is when I originally started my campaign, I had 3 core issues that are very important to me. But as I've, over the past 3 months, I've become passionate much more about a lot of other issues. And parental rights are really, I think, really being attacked by the liberal left in our state, most definitely. And we've seen this for the past decade, that the state and the state legislature and this one-party system is really infringing on our parental rights. And we're starting to see that mimicked at the national level. So I agree with you, Dan, that it is, they're taking it to the schools. And I know that the state legislature this week was caught because, or called out, I should say, in an education hearing, because they want to add to high school curriculum mandated ethnic studies or cultural studies as a mandated course required to graduate high school. And during the markup of that, what they wanted to make mandatory was talking about Islamophobia, talking about BDS, or the Israeli boycott movement. And they forgot to include, I don't know if it was intentionally, ironically, or this is just a typical liberal agenda, to talk about anti-Semitism. And we are seeing this growing intolerance of religion in our country because of the liberal left. So I'm glad that they were called out. I'm glad that they are holding that and marking it up again at the state level, because this is what we're fighting against, guys. And the state legislature, this is what we're fighting, and this is obviously trickling up. Maybe, I don't know if California leads on, maybe we are the leader of the liberal left, right? Actually, maybe not, because AOC and Ilhan Omar are from, Minnesota and New York. So, we'll give them credit. They can be more liberal than California for tonight, at least. Good question. So the other thing I want to talk to you guys about is I got a little ticked off today. So one of the reasons I believe, and we lost this seat, or our really great representative Steve Knight lost this seat, was because we lost the women's vote. Now, it's my understanding, I may be slightly off in my numbers, that when Congressman Knight was a month out of this election, or 2 months out of the election, was up when it came to women voters. And he lost by nearly 12 points, the women's vote by nearly 12 points. So there's a huge, 15, 19 point spread there from the support he had going into the election to how much he lost by after the election. And there are lots of, reasons we can look at this. I mean, people say anything is from the Me Too movement and the Kavanaugh hearings. And it could have also just simply been because there was literally billions of dollars poured into our community from the liberal left and Tom Steyer and Bloomberg, actually, I should say Bloomberg, that targeted women, Republican women as well, and Latinos. And, but the end result was that we lost the women's vote. And the only path to victory in taking this seat again is finding a different way to talk to women voters, Republican women voters, no party preference voters, and even the common sense Democrat women voters. We have to understand the issues that they care about. We have to learn how to message effectively and turn them out to vote for our Republican candidates. Now, when you have people like Steve King, who made a horrific, disgusting comment today, essentially saying that asking if the population would exist without incest and rape, was probably one of the most disgusting things I've heard from any politician or representative. That is just unacceptable. And it is clearly shows that people who don't understand, people that are not empathetic to the issues, to women's issues, and these are all, men are affected by women's issues too, and the flip, and then these issues are just issues affected by everyone. But to not understand and to not be empathetic about rape, incest, or even mocking miscarriages is absolutely absurd, intolerable, and I condemn it 100%. We cannot have people that are not empathetic, that have no idea what they're talking about, criticizing something that is a very emotional, trying, personal time for an individual. It's clearly unacceptable, and I condemn it 100%. And I think everybody in this race for the 25th Congressional District needs to own up, and this is not a partisan issue, guys. It happens to be a Republican that said this, but I'm a Republican and I disagree with what this Republican said. And this goes back to representing the values of our district and our community. And my values will always lead before party and the values of this district. I will always vote my district. So I just wanted to bring that up because it's very important. The other thing that I want to talk to you guys about is I'm going to have a friend of mine, I can't tell what time it is, Anthony Cabeza, join in to talk to you guys a little bit about LA Cleanup, which is a movement that he and some other conservative Republicans are putting on this coming 24th. We're going to have him join in just a minute. So before I have him jump in, though, I want to talk a little bit about, again, the liberal left infringing on our rights as citizens, as voters, and as Republicans. So last week, our wonderful liberal governor, Gavin Newsom, signed into law, I guess it's the Trump tax returns, that if the president doesn't release his tax returns, he's not eligible to show up on a California ballot. So if you guys kind of know how the election, the presidential election process works in California, we're a top two system, meaning back in 2012 when Prop 14 was passed, we went from having Republican and Democrat primaries. So you would have a primary where all the Democrats were on the same ballot, and a Republican primary where all the Republicans and Green Party, Libertarian, every party had its own primary, and the top vote getters from each of those primaries would move on to the general election. In 2012, with Prop 14, that changed, and the system moved to a top two, or some people call it a jungle primary. So the top two vote getters are then in the primaries move forward regardless of party to the general election. So because Gavin Newsom, and so guys, the way that our presidential elections work when it comes to presidential election years is that in a presidential election year, in the primary, you have to choose whether or not you want a Republican ballot or whether or not you want a Democrat ballot. And during that primary, you get to vote for the Republican nominee and or the Democrat nominee based on a ballot that you chose. So what essentially Gavin Newsom is doing is saying that unless the president releases his tax returns, he cannot be on the ballot. So for the 5 million Republican voters in California, come March 3rd next year, if you don't want to change your party designation, you will not be able to vote for president of the United States in the primary. That just seems unconstitutional, wrong, outrageous. And just when I think the liberal left in California can't surprise us, they do. And whether it's voter fraud, intimidation, or just taking away our rights to vote, this is unethical, unconstitutional, and we should all be outraged. If you live in this district, call Katie Hill, call Christy Smith, call your representatives to tell them that this is unacceptable and it needs to be overturned. It is being challenged. Harmeet Dillon is challenging this. I missed the opportunity. I would have 100% jumped on board to be a part of that lawsuit, because I believe that as Republicans, we have the right to vote for president of the United States. And it is very simple. The Constitution says that you have to be a naturalized citizen, you have to have been born in the United States, and you have to be 35 years old. There are nothing else do you have to run for president of the United States. And this is an infringement on our constitutional rights. So thank you, Gavin and the Democrats in Sacramento. I'm going to see if Anthony is on, because I want to talk to you guys about LA cleanup. So as I've been on the campaign trail, one of the recurring things that I hear from voters is about the homeless problem, especially in Simi Valley, in Lancaster. We're so blessed and lucky to have a really strong nonprofit program in Bridge to Home in Santa Clarita that helps with our homeless population. But not every community has as strong a nonprofit or community to get behind and to reduce homelessness. So this is a recurring issue. And our lovely representative, Katie Hill, worked for a nonprofit for over a decade that raised money, that spent money, that advocated and essentially passed a bond and ballot measure to procure over $44 million for the homeless problem. And yet, just the recent release we've seen in LA County, there is a 16% increase of the homeless population in LA County. This is a serious problem. I think it's one of the key reasons why John Lee won last night. And I think it's a key reason and a key problem that voters are looking at. They want solutions. Clearly, our representative, Katie Hill, who worked on this for 10 years and wasted taxpayer dollars, has no credibility on this issue. So Anthony, let me see if I can put him on. Anthony, bear with me for a second. You guys know I am not good at adding people. Anthony Cabeza. Okay, let's see if he jumped on. Okay, so Anthony's not on right now, but we are doing, and you guys will see, I'll release in the next couple of days, there's a flyer with a meeting location place, but Anthony and the Republican National Hispanic Assembly of California are putting together, the Southern chapter are putting together a cleanup effort, a Clean Up LA effort on August 24th. So not this Saturday, but next Saturday. I'm really excited to be a part of it. He's been fundraising to just buy some very basic, safety equipment, goggles, gloves, sanitizing wipes and all that fun stuff. But we're going to go and we're going to pick an area and we're renting a truck and we're going to just clean up some areas in Los Angeles. And I think we're going to definitely hit part of our area in the 25th Congressional District here in LA County. But I'll give you guys more information about it because I am a true believer in and being a good Samaritan and being a good citizen and empowering nonprofits to really help take care of the issues important in our community. And as individuals, we also have to give back to our community. This is something my mom taught me, that I've been a volunteer ever since I was a very little kid, whether it was volunteering in special needs classrooms or with the homeless population, Midnight Mission, volunteering at church. We were always volunteering, and I think that you lead by example, and you guys all, even if it's not this, you need to volunteer. You need to volunteer for a campaign to get the person elected that you think best represents your values, and or things like for the homeless shelter, or even for Autism Speaks, one of my favorite nonprofits. Check out their website, guys, and volunteer if you can. So Anthony, let me just double check to see if he's on, because I'd love to add him. If he's not, that's okay. He's not. So, the other issue that if you guys, so Dan, actually, your question here is, quit giving them money on the corner and the homeless won't be there. When it comes to, panhandlers asking for money on the corners, I remember growing up as a kid in San Fernando Valley, Silmar, and seeing on freeway off ramps or on ramps, people selling things, selling fruit, selling flowers, trying to provide something. Clearly they're doing that because they need money. They're trying to feed their families, put a roof over their head. I remember that. And my dad or my mom would always stop. And later on, for quite a few years, when I would visit my mom in Sylmar, I wasn't living there anymore. But when I saw somebody selling flowers on the side of a freeway, I would stop, and it was, $5-10, and I would buy my mom flowers every time I came to one of those stops on the off-ramp. But now it's so different. You have people just sitting there asking for money. And it's very sad when you see people sitting there with children or with animals, or you see vets sitting there. And more often than not, that's the case. People need money. And I also learned that from my dad, who I now, if I can, will stop and try and give them food or water or something that they can use, because it's what I have. So I am not against giving out charity. I'm not against helping the homeless or lifting up people. But the core reason and the core issue why we have that happening is because the cost of living in California, the cost of living in Los Angeles is too darn high. Whether it's taxes, whether it's regulation that cause certain things, things that we need on a daily basis to go up that we can no longer afford, whether it's the fact that it costs, 400 times the amount to build a home in California than it does in Texas, which is the core reason why people can't afford housing, because it's just too expensive to build and buy and maintain in the state of California. There's a multitude of reasons why we have a homeless population, and it comes from liberal leftist policies. The majority of these problems are based out of Sacramento and or Los Angeles County, but our federal government also has a role and responsibility in what's going on as well. So I'm looking forward to representing our community's values, helping to bring back higher paying wage jobs to our community, both here in the Antelope Valley, in Santa Clarita and Simi Valley. So also help with our transportation issues. If we can allow more people in our community to stay within 5 or 10 miles to drive to work and still have a good quality paid job, that is a core objective of mine. Will, welcome, Will. How are you? Will is another patriotic Latino Republican conservative with a great mind. Good to see you here, Will. Lastly, I did want to talk to you guys a little bit about putting some pressure on Katie Hill. So it is obviously very clear to me, very clear to a lot of you, that Katie Hill doesn't represent the values of our community. She sold herself as being pragmatic. She sold herself as being a moderate, running in a purple district. She rode the conservative coattails of her law enforcement father to relate to conservatives and moderates in the district, and it was all a lie. She votes left of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. I was actually having a conversation about this the other day with somebody where, 10 years ago, I thought Nancy Pelosi was the most liberal progressive that had ever existed. And now Katie Hill makes Nancy Pelosi look like a moderate, and it absolutely blows my mind. I mean, right? I mean, are any of you with me? Do you remember a decade ago and even 2 decades ago when we were like, Nancy Pelosi is so liberal, and now she's seeming more pragmatic? So Katie Hill clearly is not a moderate. She's a progressive liberal who doesn't represent our community's values. She now has a voting record that doesn't reflect the values of our community, and as a result is going to be one-term Katie. But I want you guys to put some serious pressure on her, because a few years ago, we as voters in California, and I say we as voters in California as a whole, and I'm not tagging Republican, Democrat, no party preference to this, because 62% of California voters voted to not repeal the death penalty. It was Prop 62. very loud and clear. I mean, this wasn't a 49.9 to 50.1 voter split down the middle. We barely won simple majority. No, very loud and clear that here in California we support the death penalty. Our current governor wants to has overturned the will of the voters. And our current representative has taken no position on that because, again, she's a leftist, opportunist, progressive who votes party line, whether it is party line in Washington and or with her bankrollers here in California. So I would definitely support, and it's my understanding that the president is going to propose legislation that be passed at the congressional level to expedite the death penalty process for cop killers and mass shooters, guys. This is absolutely, I think, imperative, and it sends a strong message to people who are considering mass shooting and to people who disrespect our law enforcement that it will not be tolerated and that we are expediting the punishment in terms of the death penalty. I support that 100%. I would hope that our representative would support that, but I highly doubt it. But what we need to do is we need to put pressure on Katie Hill to start voting and representing our values. She's not going to, but we have to continue to put pressure on her. And I'm very hopeful that if we can even win one issue, the simplest issue, to send a message to her to say, you better vote our values, although you will be a one-term representative. I think it's imperative. So there's a lot going on, guys, in our country. There's a lot going on in our community. There's a lot going on in California. And thank you. I'm going to end, I'm going to cut it off a little short tonight so that I can spend some time with my husband in Charlotte, but also so I can see who got the rose. I'm joking. No, I'm not really joking. I want to see who got the rose tonight. But I thank you so much for joining me on my weekly town hall. I'm looking forward to doing these again with you guys next week. And hopefully, I'm going to try one more time. Yeah, no. Join me next week. Love to hear your questions. Thanks. Bye.